Around 6:30 in the evening on November 13, 1974, 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. burst into Henry's bar in Amityville, New York. He frantically declared that someone had shot his parents. A small group from the bar accompanied DeFeo back the short distance to his family home at 112 Ocean Avenue. Upon entering, they made a grim discovery and immediately contacted the Suffolk County Police Department. Officers arrived to find a horrific scene. 6 members of the DeFeo family, Ronald Sr., Louise, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew, were deceased in their beds, victims of fatal gunshot wounds. Initially, police placed Ronald DeFeo Jr., the eldest son and sole survivor found at the location, under protective custody at the local precinct. He provided investigators with an account of his movements during the day and evening. During this period, detectives noted inconsistencies in DeFeo's statements as they questioned him throughout the night. His demeanor and the changing details of his story raised suspicion among the investigating officers. As events unfolded, the focus of the investigation shifted. Forensic examinations suggested the killings occurred much earlier, around 3 o'clock that morning. The weapon was later identified as a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. Subsequently, under intense questioning, DeFeo's account began to unravel completely. He eventually confessed to the murders, admitting he had systematically killed his parents and 4 younger siblings while they slept. By the following day, November 14, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was formally arrested and charged with 6 counts of second-degree murder. The quiet suburban street of Ocean Avenue became the center of national attention overnight. Following his arrest, DeFeo was held without bail. The community of Amityville struggled to comprehend the scale of the violence that had shattered the peace of their suburban town. Media coverage intensified rapidly, focusing on the apparent lack of motive and the brutality of the killings. Details emerged that all 6 victims were found face down in their beds, seemingly undisturbed by the rifle shots fired elsewhere in the large house. During this period, DeFeo underwent psychiatric evaluations. His defense attorney, William Weber, began preparing a case centered on an insanity plea. Weber argued that DeFeo heard voices commanding him to commit the murders. Investigators painstakingly gathered evidence from 112 Ocean Avenue. They confirmed that a .35 caliber Marlin lever-action rifle, found hidden elsewhere on the property, was indeed the murder weapon. Ballistics matched the casings recovered at the scene. As events unfolded, the prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Gerard Sullivan, built a case portraying DeFeo as a troubled young man with a history of volatile behavior and conflict with his father, Ronald Sr. They disputed the claims of diminished capacity. The trial began on October 14, 1975, nearly a year after the killings. The courtroom proceedings were closely followed, featuring testimony from psychiatrists for both the defense and the prosecution, offering conflicting assessments of DeFeo's mental state at the time of the crime. The prosecution presented evidence suggesting DeFeo had acted deliberately, pointing to factors like his drug use and arguments over family money as potential underlying motives. They emphasized the methodical nature of the killings. On November 21, 1975, after lengthy deliberation, the jury rejected the insanity defense. They found Ronald DeFeo Jr. guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. Subsequently, on December 4, 1975, Judge Thomas Stark sentenced DeFeo to 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life in prison, ensuring he would spend the remainder of his life incarcerated. He was transferred to the Green Haven Correctional Facility in Dutchess County, New York. Incarcerated, Ronald DeFeo Jr. began a long period within the New York State prison system. He maintained for many years the core elements of the confession that led to his conviction. During this period, however, DeFeo's account of the events of November 13, 1974, started to shift. He gave numerous interviews over the decades, often contradicting his previous statements and trial testimony. In one notable variation offered years later, DeFeo implicated his younger sister, Dawn, claiming she participated in the killings before he ultimately killed her. No evidence ever emerged to support this revised story, and authorities never pursued it. Over the years, DeFeo filed several appeals and motions seeking to have his conviction overturned. These legal efforts consistently failed, with courts upholding the original jury verdict. His requests for parole were also routinely denied. Parole boards repeatedly cited the heinous nature of the crime and DeFeo's shifting narratives as reasons for his continued confinement. The murders committed by DeFeo became inextricably linked with the subsequent claims of paranormal activity at 112 Ocean Avenue, popularized by the Lutz family, who moved in 13 months after the killings. The notoriety of the crime provided fertile ground for supernatural lore that captured public imagination worldwide. Throughout the era of his imprisonment, DeFeo remained a figure associated with one of the most infamous true crime cases in American history. His name endured in public consciousness primarily due to the brutal slaying of his family. Ronald DeFeo Jr. spent over 46 years in prison. He died while still in custody on March 12, 2021, at the age of 69, at the Albany Medical Center, having been transferred there from the Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York. The official cause of Ronald DeFeo Jr.'s death in March 2021 was not publicly released by the Albany County Coroner's Office. His passing marked the definitive end of any possibility of further first-hand accounts or changes to his story regarding the night of the murders. Despite his death, certain questions surrounding the massacre at 112 Ocean Avenue persist in some discussions. The precise sequence of events inside the house and the definitive explanation for why none of the victims appeared disturbed remain subjects of debate, though legally the case was closed with his conviction. The crime itself, the brutal annihilation of an entire family by one of its own members, stands separate from the later, highly publicized claims of paranormal occurrences at the residence. DeFeo's actions formed the grim foundation upon which those subsequent narratives were built. Throughout the decades following the 1974 murders, the house on Ocean Avenue changed ownership several times. It remains a private residence, forever marked by the tragedy that transpired within its walls. Ultimately, the conviction and lifelong incarceration of Ronald DeFeo Jr. served as the legal conclusion to the horrific events of November 13, 1974. His death finalized his sentence, closing the chapter on the individual responsible for the Amityville murders.